Hey everyone, welcome back to 996 The How. This video took me so long to make. I wanted to do something. I had this in my mind that, how do I show on this channel that the rebuild for the Utah Mammoth is over? And if I do make a video, am I even jinxing it? So I decided, just to go simple with how many seasons did it take to rebuild? And did you make the playoffs? Did you win a round? And then my brain kept going and going and going. And so I had to stop at some point. And so I got a bunch of teams that I felt were rebuilding along the same time: Utah Mammoth, Arizona Coyotes. For sure, I could have put Buffalo and Columbus here. With Buffalo, I didn't want to go back 20 years. Even Detroit, going back in history just made me nauseous, like to 2018, 2017. That was enough reminiscing for me. But I feel like I got a good group of teams. And then Detroit is sort of that extreme outlier comparison. For me, I had to decide when a team was rebuilding. Which season was it that the team decided to go in the rebuild? It's pretty subjective. It really is impossible to really evaluate and be objective of like a successful rebuild. When did it start and all of that? I try to be as objective as possible, to just put data on the board and then see what happens when you put all the data on the board. But I'm pretty, satisfied with what I did. And so we'll just get into it. Obviously, I'll have so much more referential knowledge with the Utah Mammoth and Arizona Coyotes in terms of their rebuild. For sure, I'm going to miss a whole bunch of things with every single other team. It's impossible to keep track of all the nuances a team goes through, the morphing into what the team is today compared to what it was 6 or 7 years ago. But I did try my best. I really do think I did a pretty good job. It's not perfect for sure. So for the Utah Mammoth, Arizona Coyotes, Utah Hockey Club, when did the rebuild start? For me, it's when they made the trade for Dylan Guenther. Well, they didn't even know it was Guenther at the time. When they trade for the 9th overall pick from the Vancouver Canucks in 2021, it was a season removed from their play-in round win against the Nashville Predators and their first round exit against the Colorado Avalanche. I didn't count that season after as a rebuild season because they were still trying to compete for a playoff spot. They were pretty much in a playoff spot until like the last 5-7 games of the season. And Bill Armstrong was a GM at that time. Bill Armstrong, like I already said, he was a GM during that season. He could have just kept going along, make some trades here and there, and he could have brought that Coyotes team to pretty much a perennial playoff team that kind of goes out in the first or second round. Their ceiling wasn't high at all, but they had enough pieces there to be a playoff team. They still had Chychrun, Kemper, Keller, Schmaltz, Krause, pretty much a lot of the core the Utah Mammoth have now. But for sure, Bill Armstrong was like, this is not a cup championship team. This is not even a conference final team. I want to go scorched earth and start the rebuild, trade the captain in OEL, and take on a whole bunch of terrible contracts in Eriksson, Beagle, and Roussel, and also get the 9th overall pick. So that is the genesis of the rebuild that I put on the board. It was sort of a reset rebuild, and like I already said, they didn't have to rebuild. They were sure they were mediocre, but they were just good enough to maybe grab a playoff spot. Like I already said, they're coming off a win in the play-in round against Nashville. Sure, they got embarrassed against the Avalanche. They were fighting for a spot down to the wire in that shortened 56-game season in Armstrong's first year as GM. But then he goes out and gets Andre Tourigny as well, and that's when I feel like that is the actual rebuild. If you're trying to do the math and are like, 5 rebuild seasons, but they had 7 first-round pick acquisitions and they traded one away, and then they used this many draft picks, it's not perfect math. Sometimes a draft is counted as part of the rebuild. Instead of the season. So for reference, for the Utah Mammoth or Arizona Coyotes, it starts at that Dylan Guenther trade, which was a 2021 draft, but you're not counting the 2020-2021 season. You count the 2021-2022 season. So there's like an extra draft counted along with those 5 seasons of, Andre Tourney has coached 5 seasons. Since Gunther was drafted, there's been 5 seasons. So that is what the 5 seasons represent. Bottom 5 finishes obviously was so easy to capture. The Utah Mammoth, Arizona Coyotes only finished bottom 5 once, but they finished 6th last twice. So just couldn't break into that bottom 5. For sure, they probably could have been worse than what they were. And, credit to Bill Armstrong. Compared to all these other teams, they weren't that bad, even though that first rebuild season was excruciatingly bad. Like Andre Tourney's first season, the team they iced was brutal. I don't even know how I survived that season. But the fact that they only finished bottom 5 once, you know what? It could bite them in the behind. Maybe they didn't get those high-end talents that are there at bottom 5, whereas they had to settle for Simishev, Iginla, settling in quotes, you know what I mean there. I think Iginla is worth a top 5. Hopefully Simishev grows to be a top 5 pick as well. But credit to Bill Armstrong. Even though he removed everything to the studs, he still put on the ice somehow a competitive team to stay out of the bottom 5 in the standings. Top 10 picks, Utah, Arizona had 5 top 10 picks, which you compare that to the number of rebuild seasons is pretty good. I'm going to get to the other teams later. Don't you worry. First round picks acquired. Bill Armstrong did a great job of accumulating draft picks. One of the most important thing in a rebuild is accumulating draft picks. Some teams did it. Other teams had a terrible job. Like Detroit, 10 seasons, and they only acquired 5 first round picks. And I didn't include first round pick swaps. There were so many trades where I'm going to trade you 21st overall for 15th overall. That was just a wash to me. I want like brand new first round picks. So that is what first round picks acquired means. And so Utah made 7 trades to acquire 7 new first round picks. And if you want to know what those trades were, OEL, Dvorak, Kemper, Chikrin, they did a sort of 3 draft pick swap with the Avalanche to get Cole Baudouin. They traded away 2 seconds and a third to get the Avalanche first round pick, which turned into Cole Baudouin. And then most recently, they traded away Peterka for 2 first round picks. Still can't believe they got 2 first rounders for Peterka. And then that's why they have that 1 first round pick traded, which is that, one of the picks from Peterka, they traded for Casa, 2 months ago. So a great job by the Utah Mammoth, Arizona Coyotes, Bill Armstrong to not trade away first round picks. I always said, since this channel's been live on YouTube for about 10 years now, never trade first round picks if you're not making the playoffs. And someone didn't listen to me, the Montreal Canadiens. I can't believe still the Canadiens traded away 4 first round picks, yet they're the best team on this board. They got the highest season point totals. They've won 2 rounds in the playoffs. They've made the playoffs twice already, even though they traded away 4 first round picks. We'll get to Montreal later. Number of coaches, number of GMs, it's only been Tourney and Armstrong, which shows to me like that's the right way to do it. That's smart. That's ownership as well. Even though the Coyotes had the worst ownership ever. That's probably a reason why as well. Arizona, the owner was so cheap to afford a new GM or a new coach. But then again, they were barely in Arizona enough during this rebuild to get a new GM or get a new coach. And they were on the right track. Like they had a plan from day one is a better way to say it. Like I think the number of coaches and number of GMs, the lower the number, it proves how strengthful that plan is, how solid the plan was, and how everyone was on board. And you just continue to go on this plan, on this track, and you didn't deviate when there was a speed bumps. And yes, there were speed bumps with Utah, with Arizona, for more than anyone on this board, considering they had to relocate. So they just stuck to the plan, and that's the most important thing. When you start a rebuild is to have a plan and stick to it and get the right people for the plan. Like Bill Armstrong he had to create a whole new scouting system. He found Andre Tourney himself, and he himself just stuck with the plan, even when he got a new owner who wasn't as cheap as the Arizona Coyotes owner, everyone just still stuck to the plan, which is probably the best thing Utah has done. Worst season and best season. The worst season was the Coyotes with 54 points. Detroit here, the 45 points. If you go and look at their standings, they never had a season with 45 points. This was when the NHL had a stoppage for COVID, and then I just prorated that 39 points into an 82-game pace, which was Detroit's worst of 45 points. And like I already said, the Montreal Canadiens had the highest season point totals. They're out of their rebuild, but I do have some cautionary words to say about the Canadiens, and if there's any Canadiens fans watching playoffs, we all know the Utah Mammoth made the playoffs for the first time in this rebuild a couple months ago in April, and they lost to Vegas. Lottery luck. How did these teams, did they win a lottery? Did they lose a lottery? It's not the number of positions you moved. God, I would have went insane. It was just, did you win the lottery, or did you fall in the draft standings because another team won the lottery? And for Utah, when they were the hockey club, on those last days of the hockey club, they did win the draft lottery to draft Caleb Desnoyers, and they moved down one spot a couple seasons ago. That was a Cooley draft, which proved to be the best thing possible. They dropped in the draft standings because, was it New Jersey or Seattle won the lottery? And then that moved Arizona down to third place when they finished, I believe, second last. Yeah, Montreal finished last. They stayed at first pick, drafted Slafkovsky. I think it was New Jersey who drafted second, or Seattle who drafted second. Seattle doesn't sound right because Shane Wright went fourth overall. So I believe it was New Jersey went second and drafted a defenseman in Nemec. And then because Arizona fell from second to three, they drafted Cooley. And I truly believe Cooley was the best player out of like the top 10 of that draft. So I really do think Utah had one of the best rebuilds. If they could have done anything better, it could have been be more bad. They did everything else perfectly. They accumulated draft picks. They stuck to the plan. They didn't, show dysfunction in terms of firing coaches, firing GMs, and they're on the right track. They had a little bit of luck with getting Caleb Desnoyers, or just, should I say, winning the lottery. Desnoyers, we still don't know what he's going to be. They decided to draft Desnoyers instead of Martone, who I think Martone's going to be a great player, but it's unfair because we've seen Martone play in the NHL, play in the playoffs, and we have yet to see Desnoyers play a professional game yet. And I know he was injured. I'm not going to make a 10-minute video on Caleb Desnoyers being injured, and we still don't know the extent of that injury he suffered at the summer showcase for Team Canada. Okay, next we move to Montreal. How long is this video going to be? Definitely my camera's going to run out of battery. One more thing to move off from Utah. If they could have done something better or improved, it would be somehow acquire a good power play number one defenseman. That is the piece Utah is missing, that power play quarterback defenseman. And every team on this board is for sure missing something. It can never be perfect. And so I'll talk about that as well. For Montreal, they rebuilt at the same time a couple months earlier than the Arizona Coyotes. For the Montreal Canadiens, I didn't count the Dvorak trade as a first-round pick they traded, so that would have been 5 if I counted the Dvorak trade. Because I felt at that time they still had Bergevin as a GM. They still had that coach who took them to the Stanley Cup final the season prior. They were still trying to compete. They just came off the finals. They wanted to make the playoffs again. So that wasn't a rebuild move. It was like a couple months after that where they fired the coach, fired the GM, brought in Martin St. Louis, and brought in Kent Hughes as the GM. That is the start of the rebuild for Montreal. So it's sort of the same number of seasons as Utah/Arizona. Bottom 5 finishes. They finished bottom 5 3 times. That's 2 more than Utah, Arizona. So they were bad enough to grab some top 5 draft picks. Top 10 picks, only 3. So they didn't accumulate a lot. And they only acquired 5 first-round picks. So Utah, I should just say Bill Armstrong, beats out Montreal in terms of draft accumulation. And they were just really bad at trading first round draft picks. I mean, these players they traded away draft picks for were 2 picks for Dobson, 1 for Kirby Dach, and 1 for Newhook. Like Dach and Newhook, trading away first round picks for those players, terrible trades. I know everyone loves Ken Hughes for some reason, but those are 2 just glaring terrible trades. And the Dobson one, 2 first round picks. It's like Utah didn't even trade a first round pick. Also, when I say first round pick, the pick wasn't selected yet. So yes, Utah has traded Geeky and Baudouin, who were first round picks, but this is just putting the unused picks that you don't know who the player is. That's what I mean by a pick acquired or traded. So yes, even though Utah has traded Geeky and Baudouin for Sergachev and Trocheck, I think those are better trades than trading for 2 unknown first round picks for Noah Dobson. Number of coaches, GMs, great job. They're doing the same as the Utah Mammoth, is sticking to the plan. They got pretty lucky in terms of some of their later round draft picks, like Hudson. It was drafted in the 2nd round, and he is that power play quarterback for Montreal. They got some great young goaltenders as well. They kept Caulfield and Suzuki, and they've blossomed into great players. Sofkovsky is doing pretty good. For me, I think Montreal, they're missing the center depth, and I think the Utah Mammoth, they clear Montreal by a large margin in terms of center depth and quality at their center position. Worst to best, 55 points was their worst season, and 106 points was their best. And they're the best team in terms of making the playoffs twice and winning 2 rounds a couple months ago. And they had no lottery luck either way. They never moved up and never moved down in these 5 seasons. And to talk about the Coyotes, before Bill Armstrong pressed the rebuild button, the Coyotes had terrible lottery luck. They dropped pretty much every single draft year before Bill Armstrong took over. Moving on to Chicago, did I finish up Montreal? I think I said everything. The first round picks they acquired, the players they traded for was Toffoli, Sherratt, and Romanov for the Montreal Canadiens. It says 5 there, but I only wrote down 3. I'm not sure why I didn't write the other 2 there. So that's my bad over there. Going to Chicago, on the board, they're the best team at accumulating draft picks. They acquired 10 first-round draft picks, which included Hagel, trading Brendan Hagel to Tampa for 2 first-round picks, trading away DeBrincat, Kirby Dach to Montreal, McCabe to Toronto, Dickinson to Edmonton, Seth Jones to Florida. They did 2 separate Carolina swaps where Carolina gave Chicago a first-round pick and took 2 of Chicago's lesser picks, like a second round or for sure a second round. And then taking Mrazek's cap hit as well. So Chicago did a great job acquiring all those draft picks. Bottom 5 finishes, 4 out of 6 rebuild seasons. So they've been good at being bad. That's funny to say. They kept a lot of their first round picks. The only one they traded was recently for Bo Byram. Is his first name Bo? Byram. So that was just a couple months ago. Again, I don't like that trade, and Chicago has yet to make the playoffs, so you should not be trading away first-round picks. The issue with Chicago is bad drafting and number of coaches. They haven't found the right coach. They haven't had a coach who stuck with the plan. A lot of their draft picks, and especially in the first round, are pretty bad, or the way they're developing the players isn't good. So it's either bad drafting or just bad development, where they're throwing I noticed this, they're throwing their young players out into the NHL way too early and not letting them bake in the American Hockey League. And that's why they find themselves still in this sort of Detroit Red Wings problem where they can't really get out of this rebuild. And now they're starting to become desperate by trading their first round picks like they just did with Byram. And you can see here their highest season point total, 72, is just really low. Haven't made the playoffs. And they've had lottery luck as well. They've won 2 lotteries. They got in Connor Bedard. They've dropped in 2 lotteries as well. Just, I would say, probably bad development is my answer for Chicago. I like their young forwards, but I don't like their defense at all. And I don't like their goaltending at all. Before we move on to Anaheim, the 4 Chicago coaches were Colleton, King, Richardson, and now their current coach, Blashill. So a lot of dysfunction in the organization to go with their poor development of players, which is obviously my opinion. And before we get to Anaheim, again, the 2 acquisition first-round picks from Montreal were from the same player, Sean Monahan, both for acquiring Sean Monahan's cap hit from Calgary and then trading him away to Winnipeg for another first-round pick. So, maybe that's a good point for why Kent Hughes is a good GM. Now back to Anaheim. Their rebuild started when they fired their coach, Carlisle, and their interim coach and moved into a new coach. And Corey Perry left the team in about 2019, 2020. So it's been 7 seasons that I put for Anaheim. They bottom 5 finished 4 times, which is, it's good when you're tanking and trying to get some great quality in top 5 draft picks. They did have terrible lottery luck, dropping in 5 different lotteries in these 7 seasons. Their acquisitions was not bad, for sure way lower than Chicago, who did a great job of accumulating draft picks. The 6 acquisitions for Anaheim were for Montour, Lindholm, Carrick, 2 for McTavish, 2 first-round picks for McTavish. I don't like that trade for the St. Louis Blues, and taking David Backish's cap hit way back when. The number of first-round picks they used was 13, so that's good as well. The number of coaches is pretty high, like Chicago. It's 3 coaches. Do I remember their names? I know one was Cronin, and now they're on Quenneville, and there is 1 coach in between then that I didn't write what that other coach was, but it was 3. And number of GMs, 2. That's the first team with multiple GMs, and the rest of the teams have 2 GMs as well. So definitely the plan, the vision had to change with the GM and the coach. Obviously the owner stayed the same. You never want to see multiple GMs in a rebuild. That's just a really bad sign for a team. They did make the playoffs for the first time alongside the Utah Mammoth in April, and they did win their first round series against the Edmonton Oilers, and I already mentioned their bad lottery luck. For the San Jose Sharks, I felt the rebuild started around the same time as Anaheim. They fired Pete DeBoer, and they were last in their division in that 2019-2020 season, which was 7 seasons. They finished bottom 5 4 times, like Anaheim. Top 10 picks were 6. Acquisition of first-round picks, just slightly higher than Anaheim, with 7. Those acquisitions came from trading Goudreau, Meyer, Carlson, Erik Karlsson, the defenseman, Hurdle, Granlund, Wallman, and most recently Eklund. And the first round pick that they used was for Askarov, that young goaltender. And the 1 first round pick Anaheim used was for John Carlson most recently as well. So Anaheim was very stingy about using first round picks, which is great, which is what you need to do. And they just did it most recently, and it helped them get into the playoffs. So even though I disagree with trading first round picks before you made the playoffs, at least they made the playoffs at basically the same time as making a trade. For San Jose, maybe don't use that first round pick for Askarov before you make the playoffs. I still think Askarov is a good goalie, but it's been, 2 seasons now since they made that trade and still haven't sniffed the playoffs. But at least it was only 1 first round pick that they traded. Number of first round picks they used was 12, which is good. Number of coaches, 3, which is high as well. They had David Quinn was there, and someone before Quinn. Obviously, I'm not going to remember all these coaching changes, but 3 was a lot. And 2, again, you never want to go through multiple GMs. Lowest point total for San Jose, 47. No playoffs, no rounds won. Obviously, lottery luck. They won a lottery and dropped in 2 lotteries. Next, we go to the Ottawa Senators. I feel like their rebuild started after the season, after their conference final loss to the Pittsburgh Penguins way back when, and they were second last in the division in that season. So that's 9 seasons. Bottom 5 finishes only 3 times in those 9 seasons. So Ottawa wasn't as bad as they needed to be to get those good high quality draft picks. Number of top 10 picks, exactly only 5, the same as Utah, but nearly double the amount of rebuild seasons. Number of first round pick acquired, not bad. It's good. It's not great. Like Chicago, obviously way better. Those 7 acquisitions came from 2 first round picks for Duchesne, 1 for DeBrincat, Peugeot, 3 first round picks for Brady Tkachuk, which just happened like a month or 2 ago. But they traded away a lot of first round picks, which is why I've always had a knock against the Ottawa Senators. They traded away a first round pick for DeBrincat, for Chikrin from Arizona, Allmark, and most recently Eklund. They're just too willy-nilly giving away first round picks during a rebuild. You should not do that. You need to hold on to as many first round picks as possible. And again, first round picks before you use them. If you use a first round pick, you select the player, you see how the player developed, and then you can make a more educated decision on whether you need to move on from them and where they fit in your team's future. That's why I like Utah Mammoth. Never trading an unselected first round pick until Casa. And I already talked about Geeky and Baudouin. Next, and then finally we go to Detroit. Ottawa dropped in 3 draft standings in those 9 seasons. So not a lot of good luck in the draft lottery, and especially rebuilding for 9 seasons and never moving up in the draft. That's pretty bad luck for Ottawa. And then finally, Detroit, who's been going through 10 rebuild seasons. Just it must be a nightmare to be a Detroit fan. And still at the time of this video, Larkin is not traded, even though he did request for a trade. Bottom 5 finishes, 4 out of 10 seasons. It's like really low compared to Anaheim, San Jose, who did the same in 7 seasons, and way lower than Chicago, who had a bottom 5 finish 4 times in 6 seasons. So definitely should have been worse a lot more in those 10 seasons. Top 10 picks, only 7, only 2 more than Utah, and doubling the amount of rebuild seasons. So even though they used a lot of draft picks, 17, which is what's going to happen when you rebuild for 10 seasons, they should have acquired a lot more, like only 5 first-round pick acquisitions, and those came from Tatar, Bertuzzi, Mantha. Those are great trades, like Bertuzzi and Mantha for first-round picks. They fleeced in those trades. Hronek and most recently Casa with Utah. So you can't even count Casa, really. That literally just happened. So 4 first-round acquisitions in 10 rebuild seasons. Steve Yzerman, what are you doing? What's this 2 here? First-round picks traded, really good. Like they only traded 2 in 10 seasons. Way better than Montreal and Ottawa, even though I don't like, again, my rule of not trading a first before you make the playoffs. The 2 they used were for most recently Justin Falk, and way back when for Alex DeBrincat. DeBrincat showing up here a lot in this video. Don't like, that Falk trade either. They tried to push it over the hump. They tried to force it. It just didn't work out. It's not too bad of a trade. It's just really unfortunate it didn't work out for Detroit. Number of GMs, I put 2, even though it's only 1 with Steve Yzerman, but he just got fired. So obviously a second GM is going to come, and they're still rebuilding. So by de facto, it is going to be 2 GMs. It's been 2 coaches. So they kept the coaches a little low. It was Blashill for a really long time, and now Todd McLean, who I think should they should probably move on from. He hasn't made the playoffs. He's been there for 2 or 3 seasons. So that coaching number might probably go to 3 with the new GM coming in. Back to Chicago. The fact that they've only had 1 GM and Kyle Davidson, but 4 coaches, this guy's on thin ice. And that was a desperate trade for Byram. That's to save his own job, because you cannot go through 4 coaches. It's rare for a GM to go through 4 coaches and still have his job. And then Detroit, lowest was 45, again, that prorated season, and their highest was 92. So the Utah's already had a way better season rebuilding for those 5 seasons than Detroit in those 10 seasons. And terrible luck. They've had terrible luck. They've never won a lottery in 10 lotteries, 10 drafts, and they've dropped 5 times in those 10 seasons. So that's it for me. I was really proud of this video. I know it's a bit long, a bit heady, a lot of information being thrown at you. I just needed to get this video out. I was thinking about it, writing it, preparing it for like over a week. That's the longest I've prepared for a video. So I'm proud of it, even though probably will get low views. Just I could finally make a video that the rebuild is over for the Utah Mammoth, and I really don't hope it doesn't bite me in the ass. I guess I could say ass now. It's like 30 minutes into the video. So that's it for me. Thank you for watching. If you like what you see, spread the word. And as always, thank you for your support.